Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the biggest, most epic rivalries in pop culture history, Marvel vs. DC. For decades, fans have passionately debated which universe is better. Is it the gritty, godlike heroes of DC or the relatable, flawed characters of Marvel? We've all been there, right? Arguing with friends over who would win in a fight, Superman or the Hulk, Batman or Iron Man. But have you ever wondered where this rivalry actually came from? Is it a genuine, bitter feud between two corporate giants, or is it something else entirely? Well, today we're pulling back the curtain to uncover the real truth behind the Marvel vs. DC rivalry. And trust me, the story is just as fascinating as any comic book plotline. So grab your popcorn, pick a side for now, and let's get into it. To really understand this rivalry, we have to travel back in time. Way back, DC Comics, originally National Allied Publications, got a huge head start. They essentially created the superhero genre as we know it with the debut of Superman in Action Comics #1 back in 1938. The Man of Steel was an instant sensation. A year later, Batman swung onto the scene in Detective Comics #27, along with Wonder Woman, who debuted in 1941. These three formed DC's Trinity, the pillars of their universe. For years, they were the undisputed kings of the comic book world. They were selling millions of copies and defining what a superhero was. Powerful, morally upright, almost like modern-day gods. Their stories were epic tales of good versus evil. Meanwhile, what was Marvel up to? Well, back then, they were known as Timely Comics. They had their own heroes, like Captain America, the Human Torch, and Namor the Submariner. They were popular, especially during World War II, with Cap punching out Hitler on his first cover. But after the war, the superhero craze died down, and Timely, like many other publishers, struggled to find its footing. They dabbled in romance, westerns, and monster comics. For a while, it seemed like superheroes were a thing of the past. DC managed to keep its core heroes in publication, but even their sales weren't what they used to be. The golden age of comics was over. Then everything changed in the 1960s. This is where the rivalry really ignites. Inspired by the success of DC's revived hero, The Flash, and their super team, the Justice League of America, the publisher at Timely Comics, now called Marvel, Martin Goodman told his top editor, Stan Lee, to create a superhero team of their own. Stan was reportedly tired of the comic book industry and was ready to quit. His wife, Joan, encouraged him to write one last story the way he wanted to write it, with complex characters and real-world problems. What did he have to lose? So Stan Lee teamed up with the legendary artist Jack Kirby, and together they created the Fantastic Four. This wasn't just another superhero team. The Fantastic Four were a family. They bickered, they had egos, they worried about paying the rent. They were relatable. This was the birth of the Marvel Age of Comics. Following their success, Stan and Jack, along with other incredible artists like Steve Ditko, unleashed a flood of new characters. We got the Hulk, a monster born from anxiety and rage. We got Spider-Man, a teenager burdened by guilt and responsibility. We got the X-Men, outcasts feared by the very society they protected. These weren't the perfect gods of DC. These were heroes with feet of clay. They lived in real cities like New York, not fictional ones like Metropolis or Gotham. This world outside your window approach resonated deeply with readers, especially a younger, more cynical generation. Marvel's new style was a direct challenge to DC's established formula. Marvel was the scrappy underdog, the rock and roll rebel to DC's classical orchestra. And they weren't shy about it. Stan Lee's famous Stan's soapbox columns in the comics were filled with hype. A conversational tone and a bit of playful trash talk. He created a sense of community, making readers feel like they were part of a special club, the Marvel Bullpen. DC, on the other hand, was seen as more corporate and old-fashioned. They were slower to adapt. For a long time, they didn't even give credit to their writers and artists in the books. The rivalry was now in full swing, not just in the stories, but in the very philosophy of how to create comics. Marvel was winning the sales race and, more importantly, the hearts and minds of a new generation of fans. So, was it all just trash talk and competition? Well, yes and no. While the companies were definitely competitors vying for the same dollars, behind the scenes, the relationship between the creators was often more collaborative than you'd think. Writers and artists frequently jumped between the two companies. Jack Kirby, after co-creating most of the Marvel Universe, famously went to DC in the 70s and created his epic Fourth World Saga. John Byrne, a superstar artist on X-Men, went over to DC to reboot Superman. This cross-pollination of talent happened all the time. The creators respected each other's work, even if the companies were rivals. They were all part of the same, relatively small industry. The rivalry, in many ways, was a brilliant marketing tool, and both sides knew it. Nothing gets fans more engaged than picking a side. Are you a Marvel or a DC fan? Became a fundamental question of geek identity. The companies fan these flames because a passionate fan base is a paying fan base. The most direct acknowledgement of this rivalry came in the form of crossovers. Starting in the 1970s, the two companies occasionally agreed to put their differences aside and create massive, non-canon events where their universes would collide. The first was Superman vs. The Amazing Spider-Man in 1976. Can you imagine the excitement of seeing that on the stands for the first time? It was huge! These crossovers culminated in the 1996 epic DC vs. Marvel, where heroes from both universes literally fought each other, with the winners decided by fan votes. Spoiler alert, Superman beat Hulk, and Batman beat Captain America. It was the ultimate fan service. Now let's fast forward to the 21st century and the age of blockbuster movies. The rivalry has reached a whole new level. When the Marvel Cinematic Universe kicked off with Iron Man in 2008, it changed everything. Marvel Studios, under Kevin Feige, perfected a formula of interconnected storytelling that has dominated the box office for over a decade. They took B-list characters like Iron Man and the Guardians of the Galaxy and turned them into global icons. The MCU's success put immense pressure on DC and its parent company, Warner Brothers, to build a competing cinematic universe. Their attempt, the DC Extended Universe, has had a more complicated journey. It started with a much darker, grittier tone in films like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. While some fans loved this approach, it proved divisive with critics and general audiences. They've had massive hits like Wonder Woman and Aquaman, but also struggled with consistency and a clear, overarching vision. In recent years, under new leadership with James Gunn and Peter Safran, they're attempting a full reboot of their cinematic universe. This new chapter for DC on screen is one of the most exciting things happening in superhero media right now. The film rivalry is essentially a modern-day version of the 1960s comic book battle. Marvel with its proven, crowd-pleasing formula, and DC trying to find a new, distinct voice to capture the audience's imagination. So, what's the real truth? The rivalry between Marvel and DC is a complex mix of genuine business competition, brilliant marketing, and a shared history. It's not a bitter, hateful feud between creators who despise each other. It's more like a sibling rivalry. They push each other to be better. When Marvel introduced flawed heroes, DC eventually had to make their characters more complex. When DC produced a dark, acclaimed masterpiece like The Dark Knight, it raised the bar for all comic book movies, including Marvel's. This competition has been the engine of creativity in the superhero genre for over 60 years. It forces both companies to innovate, to take risks, and to give fans bigger and better stories. In the end, we, the fans, are the real winners. We get two massive, incredible universes to explore, each with a different flavor. Do you prefer the hopeful, mythic tales of DC's gods among us, or the grounded, human struggles of Marvel's heroes? The beautiful thing is, you don't have to choose. You can love Batman and Spider-Man. You can appreciate the cosmic scope of the new gods and the cosmic fun of the Guardians of the Galaxy. The rivalry is fun to debate, but it's the love for these characters and their stories that truly unites us all. The next time you find yourself in a Marvel versus DC debate, remember the incredible history that got us here. It's a story of art, business, and how a little friendly competition created the myths of our modern age. What do you guys think? Are you Team Marvel or Team DC? Or are you like me and just love great stories no matter who publishes them? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. It's always a blast reading your perspectives. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into comic book history, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.